Hey everybody, Jamie Trull here. I am a CPA Profit Strategist and Financial Literacy Coach, and I am bringing all things stimulus to you. If you do not subscribe to my channel, I want you to go do that right this second because I have tons of other videos out there about PPP and EIDL and unemployment and all the things you might be asking questions about. I am talking about them over on my channel. So go check out those videos when you're done here. But today we are going to talk about how to get paid leave tax credits for your employees related to COVID-19. Now, this also applies to self-employed people. I'm not going to talk about that in this video here, but I will link below when that video is done. If you're self-employed, you can go and actually watch that video because believe it or not, this actually applies to you even if you don't have employees. And I go into more detail about that in my other video. This one though, we're talking about tax credits for those of you who do have employees. So I want to start by talking about who does this apply to. So this is all part of the FFCRA, which is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, okay? And this was issued way back, it feels like in March, I believe, but really didn't get a whole heck of a lot of attention then because really the number of people that were getting coronavirus or were testing for it was really, really much lower than it is today. So now we have seen kind of an uptick in the people who are needing to get tested or quarantined for COVID-19. So now this act kind of has come back into play as something really important. So let's talk about who it is for. If you have employees and you have under 500 employees, this applies to you. Okay, that means you are not only able to get payroll tax credits, which is great, but you are required to pay leave for your employees under this act. It is a requirement to give them paid leave. There is something written into the act that talks about exemptions for businesses with under 50 employees. So the thing about that that's important to say is that the exemption is not automatic. It also is not something you apply for. So what this exemption is it says if basically it would create a hardship for your business, if paying out these employees for sick time would be essentially cause your business not to survive anymore, then you can get this exemption. And what you really have to do is actually just maintain documentation that is the case, that this would put you under, and that might be bank statements, that might be financial forecasts, something like that would prove the fact that if you had to pay out this leave, that it would put you under. Remember though, you get this fully refunded via tax credits. So if you think you need that exemption, it would just be to say that you could not wait for that later tax credit from the government, that even just having to pay the leave and wait for the tax credit would put you under. But these are 100% reimbursable via tax credits. So there's really not a lot of reason not to do this, okay? And I think it's really an important thing right now when we want to encourage people to do the right thing and not come to work when they are sick or might be sick. So let's talk about this. We're talking about two things here. We're talking about credits for sick leave, and we are also talking about payroll tax credits you can get for people who have to stay at home to care for a child. Okay, so both of those were covered by the FFCRA in different parts of the FFCRA. So we're going to talk about that. So I made a little chart to help out because that is my favorite thing to do. Those of you who know me, you know I love charts. You know I love a good visual. So we're going to walk through the different reasons that you might need to request this kind of leave, how much you'll be eligible for, how much you can get reimbursed via payroll taxes, and how to claim that money back. Okay, so this chart goes through all of it. So stick with me. I'm going to walk you through it all. So we're going to start with the reason you might be taking leave. So the very first reason you might be taking leave is because your employee actually was diagnosed with COVID-19. Or your employee was advised to quarantine because of some reason by a healthcare provider. Maybe they came into contact with someone with COVID-19. Or the third reason, maybe they are experiencing symptoms related to COVID-19 and they need to be quarantined for that reason. They're waiting for their test results perhaps. Or they're subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19. Those are all reasons that you can pay them sick time and get that sick time reimbursed. Okay, so how much are they eligible for in those specific cases? We're going to get to the family leave part here in a minute too. But let's talk first about actually being diagnosed, waiting for test results, that scenario. Under that scenario, you are eligible for 2 weeks, which is generally 10 days or 80 hours-ish of paid leave. And this is under what's called FFCRA. And that is one of the parts of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA. So just in case you see those letters, that's just a portion of FFCRA. So what does this mean? So 2 weeks. Now, it would be if it's a part-time employee, they would get paid essentially what they would normally work. So if they normally work 20 hours a week, then they would get paid for 40 hours total for those 2 weeks. Okay, so that's what they're eligible for payroll tax credits that you can get back. Now, you can pay them whatever you want to, but importantly, that is kind of the maximum that you would get reimbursed for. So if they have to be out for 3 weeks, that's fine. You can pay them for that 3 weeks if you want to. You're only required to pay the 2 weeks, and that third week won't be reimbursed through a payroll tax credit. Okay, so like I said, the reimbursement is going to be capped at the employee's regular rate of pay up to $511 per day. So that's a pretty high threshold, $511 per day. So that's $5,110. That's 10 days at $511. Plus any qualified health plan expenses paid by the employer on behalf of the employee. So if you're paying health plan expenses as well, those would count on top of the $511 per day. That's how much they will cap out your reimbursement at. Okay, so how do you claim that money though? That's the big question. How do I get that money? So I've paid my employee. I paid them, maybe $300 a day was their normal rate. So that's what I paid them for 10 days. Well, you will get that back as a payroll tax credit on your quarterly payroll reports. Now remember, payroll tax is generally going to be, when we talk about payroll tax, we mean Social Security and Medicare taxes, okay? Primarily Social Security. And so you're going to actually be able to reduce the amount of Social Security that you pay on behalf of your employees through this payroll tax credit. So when you go to file your forms, right, when you go to file your quarterly payroll tax reports, you will be able to pay less to the government in payroll taxes. Okay, so based on the amount of the payroll tax credit you're claiming, you will want to work really, really closely with your payroll service provider on this. Whether you use something like Gusto, which is what I recommend, or whether you are using an accountant or something like ADP or QuickBooks Payroll, whatever it is, you're going to want to work really closely with them because there should be a way for you to claim these tax credits within that system or let your accountant know that you want to claim them. And you would have to give the amount of the leave that you paid. So you want to make sure you're classifying this correctly within your payroll system, and how you do that is gonna really depend on the type of payroll, the payroll system that you use. So reach out to your payroll provider on this. Additionally, if let's say you had to maybe pay for all of your employees, maybe all of your employees had to be quarantined because they all came into close contact. Maybe somebody at your work had it, and so they had to quarantine everyone. Right? And maybe then, in that case, perhaps when you're filing your payroll tax report, the credit you're looking for is so big that you don't have enough payroll taxes due to account for it. So if your payroll taxes due is less than the credit you're trying to get, right? Then in that case, you can file a Form 7200. You can find it over on the IRS website. Just search IRS Form 7200. I'll also link it below in the video. But it will be the form that you will file to claim that additional money, okay? So anything above and beyond what you could get back through a payroll tax credit on your quarterly filings, you can request through Form 7200. Some payroll tax companies might do this for you. If they don't, though, you're still going to need to tell them that you filed this form, because that's going to kind of change what they're going to be claiming for payroll tax for the rest of the year, right? So importantly, make sure you're working really, really closely with your payroll company on this if you're claiming this. Okay, so that is if you're diagnosed with COVID-19. Like I've said before, this also applies to self-employed. The calculation of what you get is a little bit different and how you get that money back. So check out that video. I'm also going to link that below once that video is done, and you can see how to claim that if you are a self-employed person without employees. Okay, so now I want to jump down to an employee who's caring for a child. So if your employee has to care for a child because their place of daycare or childcare or school is closed and therefore they have to be home with this child, a child is under 18 in this instance, okay, then in that case, you can also get some benefits and some payroll tax credits, although the amounts and the calculation and the time frame are a little bit different. So let's talk about that. So if you're caring for a child, you're eligible for, you'll see the very first one shows you 2 weeks or 10 days, right? Similar to what we had above under EPSLA. So it's really similar to the sick time that you would be able to get, is the same thing that you would be able to get for family leave. However, you can see in the next box over, that reimbursement, however, is capped at 2/3 of the employee's regular rate of pay. So for sick pay, it was the regular rate up to $511. Now it's 2/3 of the regular rate of pay up to $200 per day. So the total over that 10-day period that you could give would be $2,000. That's the amount that would be reimbursed. Again, you can give more. You can pay them their regular rate of pay, but that payroll tax credit is only going to be for 2/3 of it, okay, up to $200. Plus qualified health plan expenses similar to above. Okay, and you're gonna get it in the exact same way. You're gonna take it as a payroll tax credit on your quarterly reports, and anything additional you are owed, you would then file a Form 7200 to claim the rest of that money back. Right now, we don't really know how long that's taking to get that money back. I wouldn't count on it super quickly, but you wanna kind of get the ball rolling to start claiming that money back. Okay, so that's the first part. But the second part, if you have a child that has to be cared for, if your employee has a child that has to be cared for, is that they've also expanded FMLA leave, okay? So there's been an expansion of FMLA. So FMLA is what you normally would take, that's Family Medical Leave Act, right? That's what you would take if you had a baby or other longer term medical leave that you would have to take. That would be under FMLA. This expands FMLA to apply to those who have to be out of work to care for children because of COVID-19. Okay, now if it's for other reasons, it wouldn't count, but if it's because of what's going on with COVID-19 and their place of daycare or place of education is closed, then you could potentially use this scenario, okay? Now again, this only applies though if you were unable to telework or if you're unable to telework well with a child, right? But here's the important thing with this. The FMLA expansion is actually 10 weeks. Okay, so we've been talking about 2 weeks under EPSLA. Under the expanded FMLA, we're talking about another 10 weeks. Okay, so usually it can make sense for somebody who has to stay home for that full 12-week period. You can first use your 2 weeks of EPSLA, then you can use 10 weeks under the expanded FMLA. All right, and the limit for that, again, is the same 2/3, the regular rate of pay up to $200 per day, but because it's 10 weeks, now we're talking about $10,000. So if you add the two together, if you take the full 12 weeks for family leave, you can get up to $12,000 to repay your employees. So you can pay them up to 2/3 of their salary and then receive up to $12,000 back as a tax credit for it. Same exact way that you're going to claim it for the EPSLA, you're going to claim it through a payroll tax credit, okay? Now, importantly, a lot of people have questions around what type of documentation you need to keep. You don't necessarily need a doctor's note or anything like that because there are some privacy concerns there, but your employee should fill out a form, whereas they would actually be giving you the information. If they're claiming it for family leave, they would give you the information on the name of the child care place that is closed. They would give you dates. They would actually have to go through the process of requesting the leave. Same thing for the sick time leave. You would want to have some documentation around the scenario where that employee is representing to you that they qualify for the leave. You also should make sure that your employees know that this leave exists. It is something you're supposed to post. It is supposed to be widely known. You don't want to be hiding this from your employees. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. I'm going to continue to do more videos on all things like this. So tell me below what you're interested in hearing about. We are also having great conversations on all of these things, and I'm answering your questions over in Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners. It's my Facebook group. It is the link that is up on the screen right now. So we're also allowing men come on over. We're having a lot of great conversations. There are thousands of us in that group talking about all of this. So I would love to have you join us. And remember, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys next time.